The lawyer's words hit me like a freight train. Mr. Bennett, your father left specific instructions that only you can access the trust fund. No spousal rights apply. I should have been grateful. Dad had just left me $2.3 million. Instead, I was staring at my wife Melissa across our kitchen table, watching her face cycle through shock, anger, and something else I couldn't quite place. Something that made my stomach turn. What do you mean I can't access it? Her voice had that edge I'd learned to recognize over our 8 years of marriage, the one that came out when things didn't go her way. It means the money is mine, Mel. Just mine. Dad set it up that way. I tried to keep my tone neutral, but honestly, I was still processing it myself. We'd been living paycheck to paycheck for years while I worked my way up at the engineering firm. This money could change everything. But we're married, Tyler. What's yours is ours, right? She reached across the table, her manicured nails, expensive ones I'd questioned last month, drumming against the wood. We could finally get that house in Riverside Estates. I could quit that stupid receptionist job. Something in her desperation felt off. We'd been married for 8 years, together for 10. I knew her moods, her patterns. This wasn't just about the money. This was panic. We'll figure it out together, I said, watching her carefully. But yeah, legally it's in my name only. Dad was pretty specific about that. The color drained from her face. Actually drained. Like someone had pulled a plug. I need to make a call, she said abruptly, standing up so fast her chair scraped against our linoleum floor. Work stuff. It was 8 p.m. on a Saturday. She grabbed her phone and practically ran to our bedroom, closing the door behind her. Not all the way, though. Just enough that she probably thought I couldn't hear. I should have given her privacy. I should have trusted my wife. But that look on her face. That wasn't the woman I'd built a life with. That was a stranger wearing her skin. I moved quietly to the hallway, my heart pounding in a way that had nothing to do with my recent inheritance. Can't wait anymore. Her voice filtered through the crack in the door, hushed but urgent. I need it now, Brandon. You said when we got the house, when we had the money. Brandon. I didn't know any Brandon. We didn't work with any Brandon. No, I can't ask him for it directly. You don't understand, he's not… A pause. Because his father set it up that way. Some trust thing where only Tyler can touch it. My hands went cold. I've been doing this for 3 years, I can't keep pretending… Her voice broke. Actually broke. I love you. You know I love you. This was supposed to be temporary until we could afford to… I stepped back from the door like it had burned me. 3 years. 3 years of what? My brain couldn't process what I was hearing. Wouldn't process it. Next weekend when he goes to that conference in Denver. Yes. Yes, we can talk about everything then. I promise. The Denver conference. The one I told her about just yesterday. 4 days away, Thursday through Sunday. I walked back to the kitchen on autopilot, sat down in my chair, and stared at the trust fund documents spread across the table. Numbers that had seemed like a miracle 10 minutes ago now felt like a spotlight, illuminating something that had been hiding in the shadows of my marriage. When Melissa came back 15 minutes later, her eyes were red, but her smile was bright. Too bright. Sorry about that, honey. Work drama, you know how it is. She slid back into her chair, reaching for my hand. I was thinking about what you said. You're right, we should figure this out together. No rush on any decisions. Her hand felt wrong in mine, like holding a mannequin's hand. Warm, but lifeless. Sure, I heard myself say. No rush. That night, I lay awake next to her, listening to her breathe. She fell asleep easily, like she always did. Meanwhile, my mind was racing through every moment of the last 3 years, looking for signs I'd missed. The girls' nights that had become more frequent. The new lingerie I'd found in her drawer that she'd never worn for me. The way she'd started going to the gym religiously, coming home flushed and happy in a way she never seemed around me anymore. Brandon. At 3 a.m., I got up and went to my home office. Melissa's laptop was on the desk. She'd been using it to watch shows while I worked late. She never logged out of anything. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have looked. But I did. Her email was open. I typed Brandon into the search bar, my hands shaking so badly I almost misspelled it. 473 results. The first one I opened was from 2 weeks ago. The subject line read, "Can't wait for Tyler's conference." I clicked it. What I read in the next 30 minutes destroyed 8 years of my life. Detailed plans, hotel reservations, promises about their future together, photos I couldn't unsee, wouldn't ever unsee. And then I found the folder, saved in her drafts. Divorce strategy. She'd been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment. The moment when she could take half of everything and start her new life with Brandon, whoever he was. Except now, there was $2.3 million she couldn't touch. And suddenly, I understood that look on her face at the kitchen table. That wasn't just panic. That was a plan falling apart. I closed the laptop carefully, exactly as I'd found it. Went back to bed, lay down next to my wife, and started planning. The candle caught my eye the moment I walked in from the garage. It sat on the coffee table in the living room, cream-colored wax in a glass jar, completely out of place among our usual clutter of magazines and remote controls. The scent hit me a second later. Something woodsy and sweet, cedar mixed with vanilla maybe. Expensive smelling. "What's this?" I asked, setting down my briefcase. Melissa looked up from her phone, that same bright smile she'd been wearing for the past few days. The one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, do you like it? I went to that new aromatherapy store downtown. The one Jennifer told me about? They had this amazing sale." I picked up the jar, examining it. Hand-poured, by the look of it. No brand label, just a small sticker on the bottom with a price that made me blink. $68. $68 for a candle? "It's therapeutic," she said, that edge creeping into her voice. The one I'd been hearing a lot lately. "I thought we could afford nice things now. Isn't that the point of the money?" I set it back down without responding. The money. Everything came back to the money these days. But the scent kept nagging at me through dinner. I'd smelled it before. Recently. I stood at the kitchen sink washing dishes, trying to place it, when it finally clicked. Brandon's housewarming party. 3 months ago. Melissa had insisted I go with her to a co-worker's party. Or at least, that's what she'd told me. Some guy from her office building who worked for a different company. I'd spent most of the evening making awkward small talk with strangers while Melissa disappeared into the kitchen to help with drinks. The host, Brandon, though I hadn't known his name then, had given out candles as party favors. Little sample jars of this exact scent. "My girlfriend makes them," he'd said, passing them around. "She's trying to start a business." Except Brandon didn't have a girlfriend. I knew that now. I'd read enough of those emails. I dried my hands slowly, my mind racing. The party had been at a house in Riverside Estates, the neighborhood Melissa had been obsessing over, the same neighborhood where, according to email number 247, Brandon had just bought a 3-bedroom colonial. "I'm going to light that candle," I said, walking back into the living room. Melissa glanced up. "Okay?" I found matches in the kitchen drawer and brought them back. The wick caught easily, and I sat down on the couch watching the flame dance. Melissa had already gone back to her phone, typing rapidly. The wax began to melt, creating a small pool around the wick. I stared at it, that woodsy sweet smell filling the room, and felt something cold settle in my chest. She'd brought a piece of him into our home. Maybe she didn't even realize it. Maybe she'd seen the scent at the store and bought it without thinking, drawn to it because it reminded her of him. Or maybe, and this felt more likely, she'd done it deliberately. Some small act of rebellion, hiding him in plain sight. The candle burned for an hour before Melissa went upstairs to bed. I sat there watching it, the flame steady and bright. The wax pool had grown wider now, and I could see something underneath. Dark marks in the wax, just barely visible. I leaned closer. Letters. Carved into the bottom of the candle, revealed as the wax melted away. B.C. Brandon's initials. Had to be. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my photos until I found the one I'd taken of Melissa's laptop screen. Email signature. Brandon Cole, Senior Account Manager, Prestige Marketing Solutions. Brandon Cole. BC. I sat back, staring at those letters. She'd bought a candle with her lover's initials carved into it. Brought it into our house. Set it on our coffee table like it was nothing. The cold feeling in my chest spread outward, numbing my fingers and toes. I should have blown out the candle. Gone to bed. Continued with my plan to document everything quietly before filing for divorce. Instead, I went to the garage and found my blowtorch, the small propane one I used for soldering copper pipes when I helped my buddy renovate his bathroom last summer. I brought it back inside, sat down on the couch, and fired it up. The flame roared to life, blue and hot. I held it to the candle. The wax melted fast, liquefying and running down the sides of the jar. The wick burned bright and then brighter, the flame climbing higher as I kept the torch on it. That sweet cedar smell intensified, mixing with the sharp scent of burning wax and hot glass. The initials became clearer as the wax melted away. Not just BC, I realize now. There was more. BC. Plus MB, Brandon Cole, plus Melissa Bennett. Or maybe she'd already started thinking of herself as Melissa Cole. That would explain the divorce strategy folder. I kept the torch on it, watching 3 years of lies melt into a puddle of scented wax. The glass jar grew hot enough that I had to set it on the tile hearth. Wax pooled around it, spreading across the stone. Tyler. I looked up. Melissa stood at the bottom of the stairs in her pajamas, staring at me. At the blowtorch in my hand. At the melted candle smoking on the hearth. "What are you doing?" I turned off the torch, set it down on the coffee table, picked up the jar, still hot but I didn't care, and held it out to her. "BC plus MB, I said. "Want to tell me about that?" The color drained from her face. I don't know what you're talking about." "The candle, Melissa, from Brandon's girlfriend's candle business. Except Brandon doesn't have a girlfriend, does he? Because you're the girlfriend. You're the one he bought that house for. The one in Riverside Estates. The one you've been talking about for months." She didn't move. Didn't speak. "How long did you think you could keep this up?" I asked. "Bringing pieces of him into our house, or was that the thrill? Seeing if you could get away with it?" "Tyler, please." 3 years, I said. "The candle's been burning for 3 years, Melissa. I just didn't notice the smoke." She took a step toward me, hands raised like she was approaching a wild animal. "Let me explain." "Explain what? The 473 emails? The hotel reservations? The divorce strategy folder?" I laughed, a harsh sound that didn't feel like it came from me. "Which part needs explaining?" Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked at the melted candle, at the initials now clearly visible in the remaining wax at the bottom of the jar. "I was going to tell you," she whispered. "When? After the Denver conference? After you'd spent the weekend with him while I was supposedly at a work event?" Her eyes widened. "How did you? Your laptop. You really should have used a better password than our anniversary date. Kind of ironic, don't you think?" She sank down onto the stairs, her face in her hands. For a moment, I thought she might cry. Instead, She looked up at me with something that might have been relief. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said. "It just, we met at a networking event and he was so, don't." I held up my hand. "I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear how he made you feel or how I failed you or whatever story you've been telling yourself to make this okay. What are you going to do?" I looked at the melted candle, at the initials, at my wife sitting on the stairs looking small and caught. "I'm going to make sure Brandon understands exactly what kind of woman he's getting," I said. "And then I'm going to make sure you don't get a single dollar of my father's money." I picked up the blowtorch and walked past her toward the garage. I had work to do. The blowtorch felt heavier in my hand than it should have. I set it on the workbench in the garage, next to the box of emergency candles we'd kept for power outages. Melissa's car was already gone when I'd come out here. She'd grabbed her keys and left without another word after I told her to get out of my sight. 3 years. 3 years of Brandon Cole, senior account manager at Prestige Marketing Solutions. 3 years of hotel rooms and lies and plans to take half of everything I'd worked for. I pulled out my phone and searched for his address. Easy enough to find. He'd posted enough photos from that housewarming party. 2847 Riverside Estates Drive. The house Melissa had dragged me to see that day, claiming she just wanted to browse the neighborhood. She'd stood in his driveway making small talk, while I'd felt like an idiot for not understanding why she knew so much about the floor plan. The candles in the emergency box were white, unscented, practical. Nothing like the $68 monstrosity with his initials carved into it. I grabbed 3 of them and set them aside. My phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. "We need to talk about this like adults." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "You had 3 years to talk. I'm good." The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I made a mistake. People make mistakes. A mistake. Like she'd accidentally tripped and fallen into his bed. Like she'd accidentally planned a divorce strategy. Like she'd accidentally carved their initials into a candle and brought it into our home. I didn't respond. The hardware store was still open for another hour. I grabbed my keys and headed out, keeping my mind focused on the practical details. What I needed. What would work. How to make someone understand exactly what kind of chaos they'd invited into their life. The kid at the checkout counter didn't even blink when I bought 6 bags of dog waste bags, a bottle of lighter fluid, and a can of liquid smoke. Why would he? People bought weird combinations all the time. I drove past Brandon's house on the way home. His car was in the driveway, a black BMW that probably cost more than I'd made in 2 years. The porch light was on, casting a warm glow over the professionally landscaped front yard. Everything about the place screamed success, stability, the kind of life Melissa had wanted, the kind of life she'd thought she could steal from me to build with him. I kept driving. Back in the garage, I worked methodically. The emergency candles fit perfectly into the dog waste bags. I added crumpled newspaper to each one, positioning the candles so they'd stay upright. The liquid smoke went into a spray bottle I'd found under the sink, the kind Melissa used for her DIY cleaning solutions. Ironic. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Melissa. "I'm staying at Jamie's tonight. We need to figure out how to move forward." Jamie. Her friend from yoga class. The one who'd probably known about Brandon this whole time, nodding along while Melissa complained about our paycheck-to-paycheck life. I typed back, "Take your time." The dots appeared, then stopped. No response. I checked the weather on my phone. No rain forecasted for the next 3 days. Wind from the northwest at about 8 miles per hour. Perfect. Sunday night, I waited until 11 p.m. Late enough that most people would be settling in for the night, early enough that someone would still be awake to notice. I parked 3 blocks away from Riverside Estates and walked the rest of the distance, carrying a backpack with 3 of the prepared bags inside. The neighborhood was quiet. The kind of manufactured silence that came with HOA regulations and noise ordinances. No one out walking dogs. No teenagers hanging around. Just the soft glow of porch lights and the occasional flicker of TV screens through windows. Brandon's house looked the same as it had earlier. BMW in the driveway. Porch light on. A light in what I assumed was the living room window. I approached from the side yard, staying in the shadows cast by his neighbor's oak tree. The bags felt light in my hands as I arranged them on his porch. 3 of them, positioned in a neat triangle in front of his door. I lit the first candle through the bag, watched the flame catch on the newspaper inside. Then the second. Then the third. The doorbell was one of those fancy video ones. I pressed it twice, then moved quickly back toward the side yard, keeping low and fast. I was behind the oak tree when his porch light brightened and the door opened. What the? I didn't wait to see more. I was already moving back toward the street, keeping to the shadows, my footsteps soft on the sidewalk. Behind me, I heard him shouting. Then the distinct sound of stomping. I smiled. Monday morning, I called in sick to work. Not entirely a lie, my stomach had been twisted in knots since Saturday night, and I'd barely slept 3 hours. I spent the morning researching gas leak symptoms, what they smelled like, how utility companies responded to reports, the non-emergency number for Portland Fire and Rescue. The liquid smoke had a distinct smell, acrid, sharp, nothing like actual natural gas. But it was close enough to make someone nervous. Close enough to warrant a call. I waited until Tuesday afternoon. Long enough that the porch incident wouldn't seem immediately connected. Short enough that Brandon would still be on edge. I drove to a gas station 4 miles from Riverside Estates and used the payphone, yes, they still existed, to call the utility company's emergency line. I'm calling to report a possible gas leak, I said, keeping my voice concerned but calm. I was walking my dog past 2847 Riverside Estates Drive, and I smelled something really strong, like sulfur. I know that's what gas smells like, and I didn't want to ignore it if something's wrong. The operator took down the information, assured me they'd send someone immediately, thanked me for calling. I hung up and drove home. The next morning, I created a new email account. Something generic and untraceable. concernNeighbor2024@protonmail.com. The email I sent to Portland Fire and Rescue was brief. I live near 2847 Riverside Estates Drive. Over the past week, I've noticed a strong gas-like smell around the property on multiple occasions. Sunday evening, Monday afternoon, and again this morning. I've seen the utility company truck here once already, but the smell keeps coming back. I'm worried there's a serious leak that hasn't been properly addressed. I have elderly neighbors on this street, and I'm concerned for everyone's safety. I hit send and closed the laptop. Melissa came by the house on Thursday to pick up more of her things. I was in the kitchen when she let herself in, her key still working because I hadn't changed the locks yet. "Tyler," she said. Her voice was softer than it had been on Saturday, tentative. "Can we please talk about this?" I looked up from my coffee. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Nothing like the put-together woman who'd brought home that candle. "What's there to talk about?" "How we move forward. How we—" She stopped, seemed to recalibrate. "I know I hurt you. I know I messed up. But we've been together for 10 years. That has to count for something." "It did count for something," I said. "Right up until you spent 3 years planning to leave me and take half of everything." She flinched. It wasn't like that. I read the emails, Melissa, the divorce strategy folder, the calculations about asset division. It was exactly like that. She was quiet for a moment, her fingers twisting the strap of her purse. "Brandon's been having a really weird week," she said finally. "Someone keeps reporting gas leaks at his house. The fire department's been there 3 times. They can't find anything wrong, but the calls keep coming in. I took a sip of my coffee. That sounds stressful. And someone left burning bags of... She stopped, her face flushing. It's been really upsetting for him. Her eyes narrowed. Tyler, did I what? I met her gaze steadily. Did I make your boyfriend's life difficult? Did I give him a taste of what it feels like when things aren't going according to plan? He's not my... She stopped again, realizing the denial was pointless. You can't do things like that. That's harassment. That's... Proof? I set down my coffee cup. Because I've been homesick all week. Haven't left the house except to get groceries. You can ask anyone. The fire department showed up at Brandon's house for the 3rd time in 4 days. I knew because I was parked 2 blocks down in a rental car, watching through binoculars I'd bought at a sporting goods store with cash. Different car than mine. Different neighborhood than mine. No connection. The truck pulled up at 11:47 a.m. on Wednesday. 2 firefighters got out, looking less urgent than the previous visits. One of them was shaking his head before he even reached the door. Brandon answered in what looked like pajama pants and a t-shirt, gesturing wildly. I could see his mouth moving, probably explaining for the 3rd time that he hadn't called, that he didn't smell gas, that someone was messing with him. The firefighter nodded patiently, wrote something on a clipboard. Brandon's shoulders slumped. They were inside for maybe 10 minutes. When they came out, one of them was on his phone. The other clapped Brandon on the shoulder in that universal gesture of, "Sorry, buddy, nothing we can do." I waited until the truck left, then drove away in the opposite direction. Took surface streets back to the rental return place, dropped off the car, and caught an Uber home. Melissa's things were still scattered around the house, her toothbrush in the bathroom, her robe on the back of the bedroom door. She'd only taken enough for a few days when she left Sunday night, said she needed space to think. I'd given her space, all the space she needed. My phone buzzed. Text from her. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a solid minute before responding. "Sure, when? Tonight? I could come by around 7? Okay." I spent the afternoon cleaning. Not because I cared what the house looked like, but because I needed something to do with my hands. Vacuumed. Wiped down counters. Put her aromatherapy candles in a box and shoved it in the hall closet. The one with Brandon's initials went in the garbage disposal. I ran it until the wax was nothing but chunks circling the drain, then hit the switch and listened to the grinding sound. Felt good. At 6:55, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of water. Hadn't eaten since breakfast. Couldn't stomach the thought. She knocked at 7:02. Used her key but knocked first, like she was a guest now. "Hey," she said, stepping inside. She looked tired. Hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup, wearing jeans and one of her old college sweatshirts. The Melissa I'd fallen in love with 10 years ago, before the manicures and the gym obsession and the expensive candles. "Hey." She sat across from me at the table. Same spot where I'd told her about the inheritance. Same spot where everything had started unraveling, though I hadn't known it then. "I've been thinking," she started. I figured. "Tyler, She stopped. Picked at her thumbnail. "I made mistakes, I know that. But we've been together 10 years. That has to count for something." I didn't say anything. "I think we should try counseling," she continued. "Work through this. I'm willing to put in the effort if you are." "Counseling?" "Yes. I found someone who specializes in... How's Brandon?" Her face went pale. "What? Brandon? How's he doing? You've been staying with him, right? Or was it actually a friend?" She opened her mouth. Closed it. "I've been at Jennifer's." "Jennifer from your book club?" "Yes." "The one who moved to Seattle last year?" Silence. "I'm not stupid, Melissa." "I never said you were." Her voice had an edge now, the same edge I'd heard through the bedroom door that first night. And I haven't been staying with Brandon. I've been at the Marriott on 5th Street, room 412. You can call and verify if you want. I hadn't expected that. Pulled out my phone and Googled the number while she watched. Called. Asked for room 412. Said I was trying to reach my wife, Melissa Bennett. One moment, sir. The phone rang. Melissa's cell phone, sitting on the table between us, lit up with Marriott Downtown. She picked it up. Hello? I heard my own voice through her phone. Hello? We hung up simultaneously. Satisfied? She asked. Not even close. But she was telling the truth about this one thing at least. Why not stay with Brandon? Because I'm trying to figure out what I want, and I can't do that if I'm just jumping from one relationship to another. She leaned forward. Tyler, I screwed up. I know that. But I don't want to throw away 10 years over a mistake. 3 years? What? 3 years? That's how long you've been sleeping with him. That's not a mistake. That's a choice you made every single day for 3 years. She flinched. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But people make mistakes. People fix things. We can fix this. Can we? Yes. She reached across the table for my hand. I let her take it, felt that same mannequin sensation as before. Warm but wrong. We can. I'll end things with Brandon, completely. Block his number, delete the emails, everything. We'll start fresh. When were you planning to tell me? Tell you what? About the affair. If I hadn't found out, when were you going to tell me? She pulled her hand back. I don't know. Were you ever going to tell me? I don't know, Tyler. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. You were thinking pretty far ahead when you made that divorce strategy folder. Her eyes widened. You went through my laptop? You carved your initials with your boyfriend into a candle and put it in our living room. That was before the inheritance. Everything's different now. And there it was. The truth slipping out like water through cupped hands. Different how? That's not what I meant. Different because now you can't take half my money in the divorce? No. Different because I realized what I was throwing away. The inheritance made me see things clearly. Made me realize that you're my future, not Brandon. The money made you realize that. The situation made me realize that. Tyler, please. I love you. I want to make this work. I looked at her sitting there in her college sweatshirt, pleading with me to take her back. Wondered if she'd practiced this speech in her hotel room. Wondered if she'd called Brandon to tell him it was over, or if she was hedging her bets. Wondered if any part of this was real. I need time, I said. Of course. Take all the time you need. I'm still going to Denver tomorrow. I know, that's fine. We can talk when you get back. And you'll stay at the hotel? If that's what you want. It is. She nodded. Stood up. Hesitated like she might try to hug me, then thought better of it. I'll call you this weekend. We can talk more then. Sure. She left. I heard her car start in the driveway, listened to it fade down the street. Then I pulled out my phone and texted a number I'd saved 3 days ago. Found it in Melissa's email contacts. A lawyer named David Preston who specialized in family law. She'd consulted him about the divorce before the inheritance news. This is Tyler Bennett, Melissa's husband. I'd like to schedule a consultation. The response came back in 5 minutes. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I have an opening. I'll be there. I had one more thing to do before Denver. Opened my laptop and drafted an email from a burner account I'd set up. Sent it to the Riverside Estates HOA with the subject line, Concerned Neighbor Report. There have been multiple emergency service calls to 2847 Maple Ridge Drive in the past week. Fire department, utility companies, etc. The resident appears to be either experiencing mental health issues or is the target of harassment. Either way, this is creating a disturbance in our community and potentially putting neighbors at risk with false emergency reports. I thought the board should be aware. Sent. Brandon's perfect Riverside Estates life was about to get a little more complicated. HOAs didn't mess around when it came to property values and community reputation. I packed for Denver. 4 days away from here. 4 days to meet with the lawyer Preston had recommended, the one who'd helped his brother through a similar situation. 4 days to build my case. Melissa thought the inheritance had changed everything. She had no idea. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old books. Real books, not the fake decorative kind. I sat across from Daniel Wright, who looked younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with reading glasses he kept taking off and putting back on while he reviewed my documentation. "Your wife returned when?" he asked, flipping through the printed emails. "3 days ago, Sunday night." "And she's still in the house?" "Guest bedroom." I'd moved her things there myself while she was at work. She hadn't argued. Wright made a note. "Oregon's a no-fault state, so the affair itself won't impact the divorce. But this..." He tapped the folder labeled Divorce Strategy. "This demonstrates intent to defraud you of marital assets. The timing matters. She was planning to divorce you before the inheritance, which means she believed she'd get half of nothing. And now? Now she wants half of something." He leaned back. "The trust is protected. Your father structured it well, but anything you've commingled, joint accounts, property purchased with trust funds, that gets complicated." I'd been careful. The money sat untouched except for the lawyer retainer I'd paid from my checking account. "I haven't spent any of it." "Good. Keep it that way until this is finalized." He pulled out a fresh legal pad. "Walk me through the timeline again. When did you first suspect?" I told him about the phone call, the emails, the candle. He stopped writing. "You melted it with a blowtorch?" "To see the initials underneath." "And then confronted her with it?" "Yes." Wright set down his pen. "Mr. Bennett, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." My stomach tightened. "Have you done anything else? Anything that could be used against you in court or..." He paused. "In a criminal proceeding?" The burning bags flashed through my mind. The gas leak calls. I kept my face neutral. "Like what?" "Harassment, property damage, anything directed at your wife or her associate." The word hung there. Associate. Like Brandon was a business partner instead of the man who'd been sleeping with my wife for 3 years. "No," I said. Wright studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded and picked up his pen again. "The harassment campaign against Brandon Cole needs to stop immediately." My blood went cold. "I don't know what, Mr. Bennett." His voice was firm but not unkind. "I'm your attorney. You hired me to protect your interests. I can't do that if you lie to me." The room felt smaller. "How did you..." "Brandon Cole filed a police report yesterday. Harassment, false emergency calls, trespassing. He's got doorbell camera footage of someone matching your description leaving items on his porch. The fire department's incident reports list your phone number on 2 of the gas leak calls." I should have used a burner phone. Should have worn different clothes. Should have... "They haven't connected it to you yet," Wright continued. "The detective assigned to the case is still gathering evidence, but they will. And when they do, it will destroy your divorce case and possibly land you in jail." He was sleeping with my wife. I understand that. But the law doesn't care about your feelings. It cares about actions. He pulled out another form. "We're going to file a restraining order against your wife, citing emotional distress and her attempts to manipulate you into reconciliation for financial gain. That's legal. That's defensible. Setting things on fire is not." I stared at the form. "A restraining order means she has to leave the house." "Temporarily, yes." will argue that her presence is causing you severe emotional harm, which is documented by her own emails showing premeditated betrayal. A judge will likely grant a temporary order, giving you exclusive use of the marital home during proceedings. And Brandon? You never contact him again. You never go near his property. You never make any phone calls related to him. If you see him in public, you walk the other way. Wright's expression hardened. I'm serious, Mr. Bennett. One more incident and you'll need a criminal defense attorney instead of a divorce attorney. I nodded slowly. Now, about your wife's reconciliation attempt. He flipped to a new page. Has she put anything in writing? Texts, emails, anything acknowledging why she came back? She said she wanted counseling, that she sees things clearly now. But nothing in writing? I pulled out my phone. She texted me yesterday asking if I'd thought about couples therapy. Wright held out his hand. I passed him the phone. He read the message, then scrolled up through our conversation history. These are good. Vague enough that she's not admitting to the affair, but the timing speaks for itself. She ghosts you, files for divorce, then suddenly wants to reconcile the moment you inherit money. He handed back my phone. I want you to engage with her, not in person, keep your distance, but via text, ask her questions. What made you change your mind about us? When did you realize you wanted to save our marriage? Get her talking. You want me to bait her. I want you to document her true motivations. If she admits, even obliquely, that the inheritance influenced her decision to reconcile, it strengthens our case that she's acting in bad faith. My phone buzzed. Melissa's name appeared on the screen. Can we talk tonight? I made dinner. Wright saw it. Perfect. Respond that you'll think about it. Make her wait. Make her nervous. Nervous people say things they shouldn't. I typed out a response. Maybe. I have some things to finish first. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Please, Tyler. I know I messed up, but I love you. We can fix this. Wright read over my shoulder. Don't respond yet. Let her sit with it. Anxiety makes people sloppy. He spent the next hour walking me through the divorce process. Oregon required a 90-day waiting period. We'd file next week. The restraining order would go in simultaneously. Melissa would be served at work. Less chance of a scene. What about her job? I asked. What about it? She's a receptionist at Brandon's company. Wright's eyebrows rose. They work together? That's how they met. He made another note. That's useful. Creates a hostile work environment claim if she tries to argue she needs spousal support because the divorce forced her to quit her job. She can't claim hardship from leaving a workplace where her affair partner is employed. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Melissa. I ended things with him. Completely. I told him I'm committed to saving our marriage. I showed Wright. When did she allegedly end it? She said Sunday night, after she came back. So 3 days ago, he checked his notes. But Brandon filed his police report yesterday. Why would he suddenly file a report about harassment that's been going on for over a week unless something changed in his situation? The implications settled over me. She told him about the inheritance. Probably. And now he's worried you're going to escalate. He's protecting himself. Wright tapped his pen against the desk. Which means she's still in contact with him, despite what she's telling you. Another buzz. I know you don't believe me, but I'll prove it. I'll do whatever it takes. Respond to that one, Wright said. Ask her how she plans to prove it. I typed, how? The response came within seconds. I'll show you my phone, my emails, everything. I have nothing to hide anymore. Wright smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. She's going to delete everything first, of course, but the offer itself is evidence of consciousness of guilt. She knows there's something to hide. Should I take her up on it? No. Tell her you need time. String her along. The longer she thinks reconciliation is possible, the more desperate she'll get. Desperate people make mistakes. I sent, I need more time to think. This isn't something I can just forgive overnight. I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. Wright gathered his papers. I'll have the filing ready by Friday. Don't sign anything she gives you. Don't make any promises. And for the love of God, stay away from Brandon Cole's house. I stood to leave. Mr. Bennett? Wright's voice stopped me at the door. I know this is hard. I know you're angry, but you're holding all the cards here. Don't throw that away for revenge that'll land you in handcuffs. I nodded and left. The drive home took 20 minutes. Melissa's car was already in the driveway. I sat in my truck for a moment, staring at the house I'd lived in for 8 years. The house where I'd built a life with someone I thought I knew. My phone buzzed one more time. Dinner's ready whenever you are. I made your favorite. I pocketed the phone and went inside. The house smelled like rosemary chicken when I walked in. Melissa had set the table with our wedding china, the stuff we'd only used maybe 3 times in 8 years. 2 candles flickered between our plates. Not aromatherapy candles, just regular white tapers. You're home, she said, coming out of the kitchen with a serving dish. She'd changed into a blue dress I'd bought her 2 Christmases ago. I was worried you might work late. Just had some errands to run. I sat down at my usual spot. The chair felt different. Everything felt different when you knew you were performing. She served the chicken, talking about her day at the front desk. Some patient had yelled at her about wait times. Dr. Patterson had complimented her organizational skills. Normal wife talk. The kind of conversation we'd had 1,000 times. I cut into the chicken. Perfectly cooked. Melissa had never been a great cook, but she'd clearly put effort into this. I've been thinking, she said, setting down her fork, about us, about starting fresh. Fresh? I know I hurt you. Her eyes were doing that thing, wide and earnest, like a kid promising they'll never lie again. The candle thing. I should have just told you Brandon gave it to me as a thank you gift for helping him pick out furniture for his new place. I got embarrassed and defensive instead of just being honest. I took a bite of chicken, chewed slowly. A thank you gift, I said. He's just a friend. Was. I've cut off contact completely. She reached across the table, her hand stopping just short of mine. I want to make this work, Tyler. I want us. The thing about liars is they always add too many details. Brandon gave her the candle as a thank you. For furniture shopping. Except I'd read the emails. I knew she'd been sleeping with him for 3 years. I knew she'd carved those initials herself, probably while lying in his bed. But I smiled. Picked up my wine glass. I want that too, I said. Her shoulders dropped with relief. Really? Really? I think counseling is a good idea. We should start looking for someone this week. She nodded so hard I thought her neck might snap. Yes, absolutely. I already looked up a few therapists. There's one in Beaverton who specializes in... My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Daniel Wright. Sorry, work thing, I said, standing. Give me 2 minutes. I walked into the hallway, closing the dining room door behind me. Tyler, Daniel's voice was tight. Where are you right now? Home. Having dinner with my wife. Good. Stay there. Don't go anywhere near Brandon Cole's house. My stomach dropped. What happened? Fire department got called to his place an hour ago. Someone poured gasoline on his front porch and lit it. Burned the whole entrance before they got it under control. I leaned against the wall. Jesus. His doorbell camera caught footage. Dark sedan, no plates visible. Driver wore a hoodie and mask. Daniel paused. Tyler, I need you to tell me you didn't do this. I didn't do this. Where were you between 6 and 7 tonight? At your office. Then I stopped at the grocery store on Burnside. Bought wine for dinner. I'd kept the receipt. Always kept receipts now. I've got the timestamp. Good. Email me a photo of that receipt right now. And Tyler? His voice dropped. This is escalating. Whoever's doing this, whether it's you or someone you hired or just cosmic coincidence, it needs to stop. Because Cole's talking about hiring private security. And if they catch anyone, the first person they're going to look at is the cuckolded husband who already harassed him. I understand. Do you? Because arson is a felony. 5 to 20 years in Oregon. And if they can connect you to any of this, the bags, the fake gas leaks, now this, you're not just losing the divorce case. You're losing your freedom. I heard Melissa moving around in the dining room, the clink of silverware on plates. I'll send you the receipt, I said. Anything else? Daniel sighed. Yeah. One more thing. I got a call from Melissa's attorney this afternoon. She hired an attorney? Jennifer Caldwell. She's good, expensive, specializes in high-asset divorces. He let that sink in. They want to negotiate a settlement before we file. 50-50 split of the inheritance in exchange for an uncontested divorce. I almost laughed. She thinks I'm going to give her $1.15 million? She thinks you're going to want this over quickly, before things get messier. Daniel's tone shifted. Tyler, I have to ask, did you tell Melissa about the inheritance structure? About the spousal protection clause? No. Then how does Caldwell know to ask for a settlement? That clause isn't public record. It's in the trust documents. I closed my eyes. Saw myself at the kitchen table, the trust paperwork spread out. Melissa standing in the doorway in her gym clothes, asking what I was reading. She must have looked at the papers, I said, when I wasn't home. Which means she knows she's got no legal claim to the money, but she's betting you'll pay to avoid a drawn-out fight. Daniel paused. What do you want me to tell Caldwell? Through the door, I could hear Melissa humming. Some pop song from the radio. She sounded happy. Tell her we'll consider the offer, I said, but we need time to review our options. You're not actually considering, I'm buying time. How long can you drag out negotiations? Daniel was quiet for a moment. 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if we ask for financial documentation, appraisals, all the standard discovery stuff. Do it. Tyler, what are you planning? Nothing. I'm having dinner with my wife, trying to save my marriage. I opened the dining room door. Melissa looked up, smiling. I'll send that receipt in 5 minutes. I hung up before he could argue. Melissa had refilled my wine glass. Everything okay? Fine. Just a project deadline thing. I sat down, picked up my fork. You were saying? About the therapist in Beaverton? She launched into details. Availability, insurance coverage, the therapist's approach to couples work. I nodded in the right places. Asked follow-up questions. Played the part of the husband who wanted to fix things. And all the while I was thinking about Brandon Cole's front porch burning. About doorbell camera footage. About the fact that I'd been at Daniel's office during the fire, but I'd also been alone in my car for the 20-minute drive home. Long enough to make a detour. Except I hadn't. I'd gone straight from Daniel's office to the grocery store to home. I had the receipt to prove it. The timeline didn't work, which meant someone else had decided to send Brandon a message. Or, and this thought hit me like cold water, someone was trying to frame me. Tyler? Melissa was staring at me. You okay? You look pale. Just tired, I said. Long day. She reached across the table again. This time her hand closed over mine. Her skin was warm. Soft. The same hand I'd held for 10 years. We're going to be okay, she said. I promise. I'm going to make this right. I looked at her face. The woman I'd married. The woman who'd spent 3 years sleeping with Brandon Cole while planning to divorce me the moment I got my inheritance. The woman who was now trying to negotiate $1.15 million through her attorney while pretending she wanted reconciliation. And I smiled. "I know you will," I said. We finished dinner. She brought out dessert, chocolate cake from the bakery I liked. We ate it on the couch, watching some cooking show she'd recorded. Her head rested on my shoulder, my arm draped around her waist. Just like old times. Except nothing was like old times. Because I knew what she was. And she didn't know that I knew about Jennifer Caldwell, about the settlement offer, about the fact that she was playing the same game I was, just with different pieces. My phone buzzed again around 9. Text from an unknown number. "Stop, or next time it's your house." I stared at the screen, deleted the message, blocked the number. Melissa was already asleep, curled against me like a cat. Her breathing steady and peaceful. I wondered if Brandon was sleeping tonight. Or if he was sitting in a hotel room, staring at his burned porch on his doorbell camera footage, trying to figure out who hated him enough to commit arson. I wondered if he knew about Melissa's attorney, about the settlement offer. I wondered if he knew she was still sleeping in my house. In my guest bedroom, sure, but still. Under my roof. Eating meals I paid for. My phone buzzed one more time. Daniel, responding to the receipt photo. "Good. You're covered for tonight. But Tyler, watch your back. Someone's playing games and you're in the middle of it." I set the phone down. Carefully extracted myself from under Melissa's sleeping form. She murmured something but didn't wake. In my office, I pulled up my laptop, searched for news about the fire. Nothing yet. Too recent. But it would hit the local news by morning. Suspicious fire at Riverside Estates home. Maybe they'd mention Brandon by name. Maybe not. I opened my email, started typing. "Daniel, need to move up our timeline. File for divorce Monday morning. Include restraining order as discussed. I'll stay at a hotel until she's out of the house." Paused. Deleted the last sentence. "I'll stay here until she's served. Don't want to tip her off." Sent it. Closed the laptop. Went back to the couch where my wife was sleeping. Sat down next to her. Watched her breathe. And waited for Monday. Monday morning, I watched Melissa get ready for work through the bedroom doorway. She'd moved back into our room over the weekend. Her idea, not mine. Said it felt wrong sleeping apart when we were trying to reconnect. I'd let her. She hummed while applying mascara, the same off-key tune she'd been humming since Thursday. Happy. Hopeful. Completely unaware that in approximately 4 hours, a process server would walk into her office and hand her divorce papers. "Coffee's ready," I called out. "Thanks, babe." She appeared in the doorway, kissing my cheek. Her lips felt like paper. "I'm thinking we should look at houses this weekend. Something in a better neighborhood. Fresh start, you know." "Sure," I said. "Sounds good?" She left at 8:15. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then called Daniel. "She's gone. You can send the server." "Already on his way. Should arrive at her office around noon." He paused. "You sure you want to be home when she gets back? This is going to get ugly." "I'll be fine." "Tyler." "I'll be fine, Daniel." I hung up and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where this had all started, where I told Melissa about the inheritance and watched her face cycle through emotions I hadn't understood then. I understood now. My phone buzzed at 12:47 p.m. Daniel. "Paper served. Caldwell's already calling me. This is going to move fast." At 1:23 p.m., my phone exploded with texts from Melissa. "How could you? After everything I've done to fix this. You're really going to throw away 10 years? Call me, please. We need to talk about this. Tyler, please." I didn't respond. Daniel had been clear. No contact except through attorneys. She came home at 3:30. I heard her car in the driveway, the slam of her door. Her key in the lock. She burst into the kitchen where I was sitting, papers clutched in her hand. Her face was blotchy, mascara smeared. What the hell is this? She threw the papers on the table. A restraining order? You're kicking me out of my own house? It's temporary, I said calmly. Until the divorce is finalized. Divorce? She laughed, a harsh sound. You're actually doing this. After I ended things with Brandon. After I came back. After I've been trying. You didn't end things with Brandon. She froze. Jennifer Caldwell contacted my attorney last week, I continued, asking for a 50-50 split of the inheritance. How did your attorney know about the trust structure, Melissa? How did she know to ask for a settlement? Her mouth opened. Closed. You looked at the papers when I wasn't home. You saw the spousal protection clause. You realized you couldn't touch the money in a divorce. So you came back. Played the remorseful wife. Cooked dinners and talked about counseling and fresh starts. I stood up. But you never stopped talking to your attorney. Never stopped planning how to get what you thought you deserved. That's not... I was just protecting myself. In case I what? In case I didn't fall for it? I picked up the divorce papers. You have 72 hours to vacate the premises per the restraining order. Take whatever you need. The rest will divide through the attorneys. Tyler, please, her voice cracked. I made mistakes. But I love you. I came back because I love you. You came back because of $2.3 million. That's not true. Then why did you hire Jennifer Caldwell? Why ask for half the inheritance if you just wanted to save our marriage? She didn't answer. I'll be in my office, I said. You can pack in peace. I walked past her. She grabbed my arm. What about Brandon's house? She asked quietly. I stopped. What about it? The fire, the harassment. The police think it's you. The police haven't contacted me. They will. Her eyes were hard now. All the tears gone. Brandon's pressing charges. He has evidence. Then I'll deal with it when they call. I pulled my arm free. You should focus on finding a place to stay. She stood there for a long moment, studying my face like she was seeing me for the first time. I don't even know who you are anymore, she whispered. Funny, I said. I was thinking the same thing about you. The police did call. Detective Sarah Martinez from the Portland Police Bureau. She came to my house on Wednesday, 2 days after Melissa moved out. I let her in. Offered coffee. Sat across from her in my living room and answered every question calmly. No, I hadn't been to Brandon Cole's residence. Yes, I was aware my wife had an affair with him. No, I hadn't made any threatening calls or gestures toward Mr. Cole. She asked about my whereabouts on specific dates. I provided receipts, security footage from the grocery store, timestamps from my office keycard. Daniel had prepared me well. Mr. Bennett, she said finally, closing her notebook. I'm going to be straight with you. Mr. Cole believes you're responsible for a pattern of harassment, but we can't find any evidence connecting you to these incidents. Your alibis check out. Because I didn't do it. Maybe. She stood. But I'm going to give you some advice anyway. Stay away from Mr. Cole. Stay away from your wife until the divorce is final. Don't give anyone a reason to look at you twice. I understand. She handed me her card. If you think of anything that might help our investigation, call me. After she left, I sat in the quiet house, alone for the first time in 8 years. My phone buzzed. Text from Daniel. Detective called me, said you were cooperative. Good. Caldwell's pushing for mediation. They've dropped the settlement demand to $750K. Still want me to refuse? I typed back. Counter with $50K and full release of all claims to trust assets. She'll never take that. I know, but let's see how desperate she gets. The mediation happened 3 weeks later. Melissa showed up with Jennifer Caldwell, both of them in sharp business suits. I came with Daniel, wearing jeans and a button-down. We sat across from each other in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and broken promises. Jennifer started with a speech about fair division of assets, Melissa's contributions to the marriage, the emotional trauma of infidelity. Daniel cut her off. Your client planned to divorce my client before the inheritance. She consulted you before Mr. Bennett's father passed away. The affair had been ongoing for 3 years. She has no claim to assets she was already planning to abandon. My client came back, after learning about the money, which demonstrates opportunistic intent, not reconciliation. It went like that for 2 hours, back and forth, numbers thrown around, Jennifer getting increasingly frustrated. Melissa sitting silent, her hands folded on the table. Finally, during a break, Melissa asked to speak to me alone. Daniel shook his head, but I agreed. We stepped into an empty conference room down the hall. Tyler, she said, this is insane. We're destroying each other over money. You destroyed us when you slept with Brandon for 3 years. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She moved closer. But we can still walk away from this with something. Split the inheritance. Start over separately. Clean break. Why would I give you money you have no legal right to? Because it's the right thing to do. Because I stood by you for 8 years. Because... She stopped. Took a breath. Because if you don't, I'll make sure the police know exactly who burned down Brandon's porch. The room went cold. Excuse me? I know it was you, Tyler. I don't know how you covered your tracks, but I know. And I'll testify to that. I'll tell them about the blowtorch, about your obsession with Brandon, about the threats. I never threatened anyone. Your word against mine. She smiled, small and sad. Give me half the inheritance and I'll tell the detective I was wrong, that I was emotional and looking for someone to blame. But if you don't, she shrugged. I guess we'll see what a jury believes. I stared at her. This woman I'd loved, this stranger wearing her face. Okay, I said. Her eyes widened. Okay? You want half? Fine. Take it. I'll have Daniel draw up the papers. She exhaled, shoulders dropping. Thank you. Tyler, thank you. I know this is on one condition. She froze. You sign an affidavit admitting the affair. Timeline, details, everything. And you admit you came back because of the money. Why would I? Because if you ever try to use the police against me, I'll make sure that affidavit ends up everywhere. Your family, your friends, Brandon's employer. I leaned against the wall. You want money? Fine, but you're going to own what you did to get it. Her face went pale. That's, take it or leave it, Melissa. You've got 60 seconds. She stared at me. I watched the calculations running behind her eyes. Pride versus money. Reputation versus security. Money won. Fine, she whispered. I'll sign it. The divorce finalized 4 months later. Melissa got $1.15 million. I got the house, my freedom, and an affidavit that would haunt her for the rest of her life if she ever tried to use it against me. She moved to California. Last I heard, she and Brandon broke up 6 weeks after she left Portland. Something about trust issues. The police never charged anyone for the harassment campaign against Brandon Cole. The case went cold. Brandon moved out of Riverside Estates 3 months after the fire, citing safety concerns. I stayed in the house for another year, then sold it. Couldn't stand the memories. Bought a condo downtown, smaller, cleaner. No ghosts. Daniel called me one afternoon about a year after everything finalized. Saw Melissa's name in the news, he said. She's engaged. Some tech guy from San Francisco. Good for her. You okay? Was I? I had money I'd never asked for. A marriage that had imploded. A year of my life spent in lawyers' offices and mediation rooms. But I also had clarity. I knew exactly what I was worth to Melissa. $1.15 million. Not love, not 10 years of history, just a number on a trust document. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. And I was. The inheritance was supposed to be a blessing. Dad probably thought he was protecting me when he set up that trust, making sure I'd be taken care of. Secure. Instead, it became a spotlight, illuminating everything I'd been too comfortable to see, too trusting to question. Melissa didn't destroy our marriage. It was already broken. The money just made it obvious. People talk about trust like it's a gift you give someone. But trust isn't a gift. It's a mirror. And sometimes, when you hold it up, you don't like what reflects back. I learned that the hard way. I learned that love and loyalty aren't the same thing. That history doesn't equal commitment. That sometimes the person sleeping next to you is a stranger you've just gotten used to. The money's still there. Most of it anyway. Sitting in accounts I barely touch. I donate some. Invest some. Try not to think about what it cost me, because the real inheritance wasn't the $2.3 million. It was the truth. And truth, I've learned, is worth more than any amount of money, even when it burns everything else to the ground.